You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
Oh, I gotta actually switch it back. Guess I didn't have my Discord up. There we go. Perfect. We are rock solid from the get-go, as per usual, unlike Monday night. It's just one of those weeks. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight, on episode 199, we're going to be taking a look at the most recent news around the game, and of course the competitive scene before we preview this weekend's homestand series where Houston is still going to try to find it within them to walk away with their first win of the season. It's been a rough go win as of yet. They're hoping to kind of like buck the trend of home teams basically going 2-0 and 0-2. I don't know how well that's going to work for them this week, but we'll preview that in our main discussion for tonight. So before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host. We got Big Head Ed. It's been an interesting day, interesting week, not just for Overwatch, but, we've had some stuff in Apex. We had a massive patch drop this afternoon in Hearthstone, specifically for the Battlegrounds. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and we're just trying to sort out, there's just so much stuff to kind of, dive into. We don't really know where to start.
Oh, no, we totally don't. It's been an interesting week, and, we have everything from 2 different Overwatch patches that we will talk about, to we have, the Hearthstone Battlegrounds thing, to Dr. Disrespect playing Overwatch today for the first time since the game launched, which was possibly the best ever. He is, obviously he doesn't know the game, but if he places silver, I'll be surprised. The majority of the games, he wasn't getting any medals as DPS, and he was 1-4 or 1-3.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hilarious. So yeah, no, it's been a crazy week. Been actually playing a little bit of Overwatch, which is, weird. Because, it's kind of at the point right now where a lot of people are more Overwatch League than playing Overwatch, which, whatever, is fine. But to actually play it again is something nice.
Right. Yeah, and I'll be honest, I haven't really been on since the patch dropped. But, we still got stuff that we need to talk about. So before we jump into that, though, just a quick couple of notes here. We are going to be celebrating episode number 200 as a podcast next week. And just to let you guys know, we are not recording on Wednesday next week. We're actually going to be recording on Monday. That would be March 2nd. Now, it will be going on before we record the next episode of Overwatch League Network. So I would expect we'll probably be live Monday at our normal time, which would be 5 p.m. Pacific time. So we hope you guys can make it out there to celebrate the occasion and kind of, reflect on, the past 100 episodes of Edinar. You're muted. That's gonna be on the bingo card, Ed.
Bingo card. Yes, we are gonna make a bingo card for the 100th episode.
The 200th?
No, it's my 100th.
Well, yeah, but it's 200th.
Well, actually, so technically,
you've been on more than 100. I'm pretty
technically,
sure.
I think today or last week was my 100th episode on Heroes Never Die, because I think I guested twice before I became a full-time host. So technically, I'm at 101 right now, which does not feel that good. It does not have the same ring to it.
Well, the only thing I can think of when someone says 101 is the BS that the cavalry pulled, if you remember this, and when they're like 101 and done, and then, a week or so after the fact, oh, hey, we're back. I'm on
You're
to you.
like, awkward. Oh, cavalry show.
So that was the thing. Until it
Mhm.
wasn't, unfortunately. Rip. F's in chat for
Oh.
the cavalry. Hopefully someday we'll get him back.
I still remember the best meme I've ever shared of Overwatch was in the cavalry Discord. It was the one where PG-13 ish. It was the one where it was a bunch of Doomfists, like 7-8 Doomfists, and a Tracer in the middle.
Oh, okay,
and then
the
it just
casting
said
couch.
Pornhub over the top.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were a lot of those jokes.
I mean, there's a lot of content just out there specifically for R34 for Overwatch. Let's be real. It is just about everywhere. But anyway, so Monday, episode 200. We hope that you guys can make it out. So if you guys want to, tweet us messages or send us, audio files or anything to play on episode 200, feel free to send them to our email or you can DM us over on Twitter or on Discord, whatever. We would love to hear you guys on that front. And, we'll definitely be doing a couple of things for episode 200. Probably have a giveaway or two, so stay tuned for all of that good stuff. But just outside of that, we also have our game night coming up again for March, which will be on Saturday, March 21st. So we'll start that at 7 p.m. Pacific time again. So we hope you guys can make it out for the next round of community Overwatch games, and hopefully we'll have enough people to start a full lobby and get some 6v6 going on that end. But, it was a good time, nonetheless, just kind of shooting the shit in quick play. And, it's going to be a little bit more interesting since we keep getting more and more stuff kind of added to the game. So without further ado, let's jump into the Overwatch news from this past weekend. So to start things off, we had a new developer update, where our dev and savior, Papa Jeffrey Capcap, praise him, had the not-so-subtle hint that there was going to be an event. And the event is the Ash Mardi Gras Challenge. Now, this is live. This is with the most recent patch, which also has another new feature that was also part of the prior developer update. So the Mardi Gras Challenge is going to be running until March 9th, and you're going to be able to unlock player icons. You can get an exclusive spray. There is an epic Ash skin, where she basically dons green, purple, and gold attire. She has a masquerade mask, and Bob is also joining the festivities. He has his own mask, and a green vest, and then he also has the Mardi Gras beads. I don't want to know how he got them.
Yeah, did Bob flash someone? Was he
Well, Ed, here's the thing.
Did you get mechanical boob?
There's been this ongoing campaign with Overwatch skins about freeing the nipple, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's continuing to transcend, the further into the lifespan of Overwatch we are. So I'm assuming that's what it meant.
But I mean, can you do would Bob have nipples?
Well,
he's a machine. He's a robot.
Well, maybe it'd be the bat suit.
Yeah, I know okay, fair enough. The bat suit had nipples, but that was a horrible move.
Well, yeah. I didn't say it was a good move.
But that was a suit. That wasn't an actual robot. So, would he have boobs? Or,
I don't know.
He has breastplates probably, but I'm confused now. We need someone to freaking tell us what's what.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey, reach out to me. Does Bob have nipples or not?
Yeah, we are asking the hard-hitting questions here. So, of course, in order to unlock everything, you do need to win 9 games. And, the 9th win does unlock the epic skin. So at 3 wins, that's when you get the 2 player icons, you get the spray. At 6 wins, and those wins can come just like all the other challenges from competitive, they can come from quick play, arcade mode, but wait, Ed, there's more. The new mode, experimental mode, can also go towards this as well. So, if you wanna, just shoot the shit and play overpowered tanks, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, you can also do it that way as well. And also, continue to level up just like you would in any other Overwatch game as well.
Yeah, I've already got my three wins so far. And then I have my Twitch drop emotes. I've got all of those because while I was, playing Apex, playing a little Overwatch, did OWL by the numbers, and then did Dropping Spicy, I just had, I think I had Seagull up. Was it Seagull? No, it was Emo up.
Well, a lot of people will have drops enabled.
Oh, yeah, I just had...
he was the featured streamer, though.
He was the featured, and he had Zed playing with him, which was cool. So, yeah. This is cool. It was smart of them to release just a limited 1-week event with the introduction of experimental card, because it guarantees that people will be coming back to play it, like me. Like, if experimental mode was out there, I may have come back and played a little bit, but now I'm going to come back and play a bunch to get my 9 wins through it. Like, so it was smart for them to introduce a skin with this to get people to actually play it.
Right.
So, that Jeffrey, he's a smart cookie.
Yeah, he's trying to, bring people in, trying to entice them a little bit, be like, hey, check out this stuff. And, it's important to note, too, like, there's been a couple of reactions to the whole experimental card that was implemented also with this patch. So, let's talk about what's actually in the game right now for it. And then I want to talk a little bit about just the community overreaction and just general response to it that has kind of been like all over the map. So to start things off, the experimental card is basically an in-game PTR on the live client, essentially. This is a way for them to test out new things that probably won't see the light of day in the actual base version of the game. And the first one that they put in is triple damage. And by that, I don't mean DPS is doing 3 times as much damage. By that, it means you got 3 damage dealers, 2 support players, and 1 tank hero. So, along with that, they also made balance changes specifically for this experimental card. And there's quite a bit of them. And I'll be honest, Ed, as I said, like, I've not actually played any of them yet. I've watched a few streams here and there just to get like a general feel for some of the heroes, but there's some interesting takes in regards to the direction of the heroes that they did take. So for D.Va, they adjusted the armor to health ratio. So the total health is still at 600 altogether, but the armor was bumped up from 200 to 400, and then they reduced the base health from 400 to 200. They also increased the duration of the defense matrix from 2 seconds to 4 seconds, and then they also reduced the primary fire movement penalty from 50% to 30%. So I'll be honest, like a lot of the D.Va players were pretty aggressive, especially like when you add in the fact that D.Va can fly all over the map now, essentially. So that was an interesting one, but the one that intrigued me the most is not the one that you dubbed, Ed. It was actually the Zarya change. And we were kind of like spitballing ideas when it came to how we feel like the dev team could make off tanks more main tank viable. And, one of the things that we were looking at was a potential, like, group barrier for Zarya, which is actually one of the things that she did get. So the allied particle barrier creates barriers on all allies within 8 meters of the target. Then he also bumped up the duration from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. Outside of that, the shield health pool was increased from 200 to 300, meaning that Zarya now has a total health of 500. But then they tweaked the max energy that you gain per barrier from 40 to 30, so that's a little bit down. Same with the primary fire max damage. That was dropped from 170 to 140. And then they also nerfed the max damage of the alternate fire from 95 to 80. But they basically made your barriers a lot better. That includes the self one, where they lowered the cooldown from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. So, Zarya has always kind of been a comfort pick for me, like in regards to the off tanks. D.Va was technically like my go-to in most cases, but I just like the Zarya playstyle and just the way that you track with the beam and knowing that you could play hyper aggressive at times and not really get punished for it like you would with another tank. So it was just cool to see like one of our ideas was actually put into place here, at least with this mode.
Yeah, I played with I didn't play any of the main tanks. I mainly played DPS. And I got a loot box for playing DPS, which was a nice little change of pace. But I played with a couple of Zaryas, and yeah, she's interesting now. Basically, it's we had the idea of turning her into essentially a disc priest from WoW.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you put bubbles on people, but you also had an ability to put a bubble on everyone around you and do damage. Yeah, they like, I am very happy they just completely and utterly destroyed her damage, because that would have been out of control.
Mm-hmm. Because of how well it was scaled.
Exactly. Now, I will say this with what they did to her. Yeah, in this mode with people just screwing around, there is no main tank really. Like, there's no like primary tank, like, because nobody sticks together, nobody does all that stuff. The likelihood of everyone gathering all up together in this mode and like screw around mode, gathering up and pushing it together so she can take full advantage of this is slim to effing none. But it's still really cool nonetheless. It's definitely, from what I've seen, the best of the changes for the off tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was the most effective change. This was the change that probably made them most main tankish. But yeah, it's definitely fun to play.
So outside of that, they made some tweaks to Roadhog. So Take a Breather leaves a cloud behind that heals all allies within it for 25 health per second. Then it also provides a damage reduction of 25%. They also reduced the Chain Hook cooldown from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. And then they nerfed the primary fire damage per pellet from 6 to 5. So in regards to damage per shot, that's basically a differential of 25 damage. Then they also increase the ultimate cost of Whole Hog by 15%. Now, Ed, you've kind of like dubbed the new Take a Breather something else.
So it's a fart shield. Like, he farts, he shields. I'm gonna Brangelina the hell out of this, and I'm just gonna call it a shart. Because what you're doing is you're sharding all over your teammates.
Yeah, so you got the P, and now you got the shart.
Yeah, like, you have number 1, number 2. Essentially, if you're running a Moira, you're like number 1, number 2, number 1, number 2, number 1, number 2, and they both heal you. Mm-hmm. So, this is cool. Again, it's not effective. like, because how many people are actually standing behind their Roadhog?
Mm-hmm.
No one, because they're still getting shot. There's no shield to prevent them from getting shot.
Right, you're still a alt battery.
Mm-hmm. You're a meat shield who sharts healing. basically is how it goes. It's interesting. One thing I noticed with all these flex tank changes to main tanks is they don't play as tanks. They seem more tanky DPS, and that's how you almost have to play them. Like,
Which
I'll give my thoughts on 3-2-1 when we get through the rest of the changes. But yeah, they don't really play as main tanks. They just seem like super aggressive flex tanks still almost at this point.
right. But at the end of the day, when you look at damage components, they effectively did nerf a lot of the DPS for those specific characters. Now, looking at the other tanks with Orisa, the protector barrier cooldown was reduced from 10 to 8 seconds, and then he also bumped up the barrier health to 900. Reinhardt saw his armor health increase from 200 to 300, but then with that, they also decreased his base health from 300 to 200. So similar to like what they did with D.Va in that case. I hate that they worded this primary fire damage. Just put swing damage, like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So the swing damage was increased from 75 to 90, and then they also increased the barrier field regen rate from 200 to 250 per second, which you're gonna need, especially since you have that added DPS on top of that. So outside of that, Sigma, they looked at the experimental barrier, so the regen rate was increased from 120 to 200 per second, with the health increase from 900 to 1200, and then last but not least, we have Winston, who saw his armor health pool increase from 100 to 200, meaning he has 600 total health. Then he also reduced the barrier projector cooldown from 13 seconds to 10 seconds. All right, so a lot of stuff kind of like compacted into here, a lot of changes. Again, guys, it is exclusive to this mode. And I'll be honest, Ed, I have been browsing Twitter, right? And the amount of times I basically come across someone being like, WTF, dev team, why are you putting this into the game? Guys, it's not going to live. It's
Right?
like people miss the whole word experimental. It doesn't mean that there's any thought process behind them actually pushing this alive at any points, but I've been seeing so many people chiming in, giving these knee-jerk reactions, most of the time being overreactions, and it's just, it drives me up the wall. And the thing that I alluded to earlier pre-show, Ed, is after they announced this, there was this blog post that our Deaf and Savior Papa Draft Recap Cap, praise him, did. I can't remember who the other person was, I'll be honest, but they talked about ice cream in this blog post. And how some people, like things vanilla, other people like strawberry, whatever. But at the end of the day, I look at the reactions from the community about this specific thing. And I'm gonna use an analogy of ice cream here. It's like Neapolitan, right? Except one of the flavors is missing. So all of these people just don't have everything there, and it drives me up the wall. Stop overreacting. It's not actually within the game. This is purely for experimental purposes. None of these balance changes are going to see the light of day in the actual game. It's like it's one of those things that you just need to shut up and enjoy it, or just check it out. If you don't like it, don't play it. It's as simple as that. But people have just been really beating a dead horse with their reactions, specifically for this mode in particular.
First off, okay, screw this mode. Do you know people who only eat one section of the Neapolitan ice cream?
Well, I know people that have left one specific flavor empty out of it.
They need to burn in frickin' hell. Those are the worst human beings on the planet. Okay, not the worst human beings on the planet, but you're a piece of shit.
And I will say, if you have ever watched The Simpsons, that's also a common thing, where they just eat the chocolate and leave it in the freezer.
The point of Neapolitan, you mix that together. Like you get it all in one bite, and they shouldn't work all so well together.
Mhm.
But okay,
It's all Bart. He's the
Neapolitan
culprit.
ice cream aside, I agree. Like, I actually am surprised at Twitter. I expected to see more of this needs to be like put into the game live. I love these changes. This needs to be like this mode and stuff like that. I'm like, I expected more of that, and I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
more the approach of like, well, like sure, like this will be quicker DPS queues, but then the balance is kind of like wacky. Like I can understand that take on it, but not
mhm.
not with the way that things have kind of gone at this point.
Yeah, like, and the thing is yeah, it fixes DPS queues, but it makes tank queue. It's made the tank queues 10 times worse.
Mm-hmm.
So you turn in from DPS queues got a lot better. The rest of the queues got crap. Like, so you trade one for the other. It's not like it made it anything better. If anything, it made it worse. Now, one thing I saw a lot on, like, probably the thing I've seen the most on Twitter and on Twitch and watching all that stuff is people are like, you know what would work even better? 2-3-2. Still have the ability to have flex tanks and have all that, and people who don't want to be the main tank, just add a DPS.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wouldn't need to completely and utterly change all the tanks and stuff like that. There's just one more DPS out there. I don't think they would drastically need to change the game for that. I don't know if they need to change anything in the game for that. Like, I don't think it would need balance changes if they added a DPS. So I don't know. It's an experimental mode. It's only here temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get used to it. If this doesn't work, expect them to try something else. This is going to be where they test stuff out and actually want to know, like, how it goes, because nobody plays the GDPTR.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody plays the PTR, so like, how can they test stuff out like this and see if it actually works? So I don't know. I think it's a fun mode. It's an awesome arcade mode. Outside of that, there is no chance in hell this makes it to live.
Yeah, and a lot of that just stems from the fact that, well, we already know what the development team's take on this specific mode has been, because they did talk about that in a pretty lengthy post prior to that. So we know this is not going to be an actual mode that will be added to the base version of the game. Now, that being said, speaking of the PTR, we did actually get a balance patch. It was added earlier today. Today being, of course, Wednesday, February 26th. And this is the new feature of shared replays. So you can share replays via a 6-character code, and then you can like post that code basically wherever, and then players can actually input that code and watch your replay. So basically the codes are going to be valid until the next patch, and you're able to pin up to 10 different replays. So just as like a baseline, they do track your 10 most recently imported replay codes. And then you can also like add descriptions and notes to the replays as well. So now this has been something that the community has really wanted for quite some time now. You know, we had the import codes for the workshop. It only makes sense that eventually we would get it for the replays as well. So, you know, from a content creator perspective, or even just from like a coach's perspective, like this is going to be absolutely awesome to do like more like 1v1 sessions and things like that moving forward.
Yeah, no, this is something everyone's been asking for, and they have said that this was something that they were working on, but there's a lot of coding that like there's a lot of coding that went into the background of all this. So it's one of those things where I just don't know if how much work, but I'm glad they finally came around to it because yeah, like you could say make all these replays, but all you could do was watch them yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You had to use a secondary program. Not having to have a secondary program to show matches is a huge. So yeah, no, this is a great feature. I'm really glad I'm very glad they did this because if I ever get back into serious Overwatch, that's something I'd want to do is share some of my matches.
Mm-hmm.
So
And just do like a VOD review.
Yeah, like a VOD review.
Now that being said, we also do have some balance updates that we need to get through. So to kick things off, you probably have noticed a lot of diva play here as of late. And, they recently made changes to her boosters where, diva can basically get away with murder at this point, right? You can get in, you can get out, all that good stuff. But on the PTR, they did change the booster cooldown, increasing it from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. So gonna have to be a little bit more lenient on the booster usage, but we'll see how much this is gonna come into play. Obviously, hero pools are also put in with the live patch, but again, like that doesn't start until the next season, which is in March. So we're still trying to sort out how that is exactly gonna work, at least in the base game. So hopefully we'll hear more on that soon. But Diva's definitely been pretty damn prominent in the Overwatch League. Probably a pretty good guess that she's going to be out of the rotation, once we get the first hero pool within the league in itself, because her playtime is above 10%. But outside of that, Ed, they also made a change to Mei. Unfortunately, it is not the change that the community wanted, and by that, I'm talking about the multi-freeze. The multi-freeze is still intact, hasn't gone anywhere, but they did increase the cooldown of the ice wall from 10 seconds to 13 seconds. It's still gonna be in every fight use. Like, that doesn't really change anything on that regard. And they also made it where the player collision now allows large heroes to fit through 1 pillar gaps. So I imagine it's gonna be like a flubber situation with like Reinhardt. You think his model like narrows and he just squeezes through?
Did you really go flubber?
Or
you
like Santa Claus.
There you
Yeah.
go. I was
That
like,
would-
how do you not do the Santa Claus fitting down the chimney? Come on.
They're close enough. It's the same situation.
You're better than
It's just
that.
a different material.
Yeah, I guess. Still, you're better than that. I'm disappointed. No, it's one of those things where like these are. I hate the diva change. I do. I actually hate the diva change.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the only thing that was making it like her like super viable, and she loses that, and like that was probably the best change they could have made for her, like back in the day before she was super overpowered.
Well,
was her boosters. Now she can actually get in, get out, and that be that.
I feel like right now it's kind of a combination of what DPS heroes we're seeing in the meta, with it primarily being Mei and McCree. Now, Diva is still going to have the ability to bully and get in McCree's face. You're still not going to have any change in regards to the defense matrix, which has been a huge play, both in regards to, like, Eden, the Blizzards, same with, just having it up with Deadeye going out as well. So it doesn't really change too much that, but I feel like at its core, yes, the amount of ground that you can cover does play a role, but it's also kind of intuitive based off of what we're actually seeing happening in the games right now. So it's not just purely off of movement alone, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not purely off movement alone, but I don't know. Change it back. I hope this change doesn't go through. The main ice wall thing, the cooldown, whatever. fix her freeze.
Yeah, just remove multi-freeze. Or cap it at how many you can actually freeze.
Yeah. Now, may be. Ha. Yes, victory. I got the totem head shake. Cross that off my bingo board.
With the one that we haven't made yet?
the disapproving totem, that's not funny head shake. That needs to be on the bingo board. It's whatever. This will not affect May's pick rate whatsoever. Hopefully she's gone with the next hero pool and we start to see some other things.
There was a very clear direction that they could have taken, Ed, that would have solved all of these issues with the unveiling of Overwatch 2. They could have killed me.
Oh my god, that would have been glorious.
And wiped her off of the face of the planet, right? And just removed her from the game. Obviously, that is too far-fetched to actually happen. But what if?
Would have been so nice if they would have just killed her off.
Because that's really...
I would have stood up and cheered at BlizzCon.
I'm sure you would have.
I would have been like, this is the best shit ever.
Right. And a lot of this honestly just stems when you look at the recent balance changes. A lot of the boxes that have been ticked off have been some of the most requested balance changes from the community. The only one missing is May multi-freeze that has not been adjusted yet. And it's infuriated. Like, they were so close. They had it like 99% in there, and then they just couldn't bring it home.
They're nerfing May the way they nerf Brig for goats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're nerfing, but you're not actually removing her from the meta.
Yeah, you're changing her.
You're changing her, but you're not doing enough to be like, no, we can't play her. So this is awkward.
Yep. So outside of that, we have two other heroes to talk about. Looking at Sigma, they reduce the cost of Gravitic Flux by 10%. So for all those 0 times you see Sigma, this will come into play.
We saw Sigma played.
Marginally, but
we saw Sigma.
A little bit. Yeah, Sigma is just kind of like in a weird spot right now. I don't think this is going to be enough to kind of like offset that. But again, a lot of that is just due to the fact that Rhine Diva has been the prominent tank duo here in recent weeks. That probably won't change, at least with this, until hero pools come into the rotation. And, it'll be interesting to see where the off-tank situation goes from there, whether people just go back to double barrier, or they just go back to Rhine Zarya. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That won't do anything to Sigma. Like, it's meaningless.
Now, we have one other hero, that being Legs, aka Soldier 76. They've reduced the cooldown of Helix rockets from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. And when I saw this, I was like, awesome. I can nearly end up hurting myself that much more often per minute now.
Mm-hmm.
Accidentally. So thanks, Blizz. This is just one of those scenes where I feel like it's gonna hurt me more than actually help me.
This is actually probably my favorite change they made. Because I think Soldier is an iconic character that the game... And I mean, you want to see Soldier in the games.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like a tracer, and he's somebody like the real basic normal people can play. He's not overly complicated, but he's not complete crap. So, boosting him up a little bit is probably the smart thing to do. I don't know if this makes him meta viable, but it makes him definitely better to get more of those Helix rockets off.
Well, Ed, there's one problem with this.
What's that?
There is still a better Soldier in the game.
With Baptiste. I know, but,
For those people that do want a DPS.
For those people who do want a DPS, without the DPS queues, just go Baptiste. Yeah, no, it makes like they need to do more. I don't know how they do more.
Change the bullet damage.
Yeah, it's really got to be that. Maybe do something with his like AoE heal, like when he places it on the ground. Maybe I don't know what, but
It heals
so
and gives you a damage boost.
right. But the thing really preventing him from being played has always been shields.
Mm-hmm.
Like his ultimate is shut down by Reinhardt's shield. Like it's just one of those things where his kit is destroyed by anything with a shield.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and that will always be the case. So I don't know how they fix it, but it's it's a nice little change. It makes them a little bit more powerful.
All I know is that card for Helix Rocket kills is going to be seen a little bit more now.
God, I hope not. That means I'm playing with more soldiers. Wait, is this awkward?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So on that note, let's go ahead and shift gears and see what's going on a competitive side of things as we go around the league. So to start things off, only so much we can say about this because this is not the first time that we've had to discuss the coronavirus, but there have been more cancellations in regards to the Overwatch League. This one is basically impacting weeks 5 through 7. So initially, once the China homestand events for the first 2 months were canceled, they were planning on playing these matches in a studio in Seoul, South Korea. But unfortunately, all of those have been canceled as well at this point. So up to date, this marks the 6th homestand event that has been canceled due to the coronavirus, and it jumps in regards to like the number of effective matches up to 33. And then you have like a division like the Pacific East who still have not seen the stage here as of yet. Now, we don't have any details on how this is going to impact the Overwatch League schedule, and details on that regard are going to be provided at another time. But, this has definitely been a hot topic, not just for the Overwatch League, but for esports. I mean, really, it's been a global discussion at this point. And, we can only say so much, but, at the end of the day, player safety comes first, and there's only so much we can do given the circumstances. So hopefully these games will get played at some point. But, we've kind of been throwing out ideas on, ways they could try to get these games done, whether it's like online only, what it would mean for something like, say, the mid-season tournament, how it impacts Fantasy Overwatch League. There's a lot of stuff that this kind of directly impacts just across the board here.
Yeah, Fantasy Overwatch is basically screwed at this point because of this. Now, granted, I'm not like mad at them for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, they needed to cancel this. They had to. Also, can I just point out one thing I keep hearing is people keep saying, oh my God, the coronavirus. More people die from the flu. Shut up. You're an idiot. Yes, more people have died from the flu than from the coronavirus. But the percentage of people who get the flu who die is 0.01% or 0.1% of people who get the flu. And the coronavirus is 2%. So shut up. I just want to point that out. Like, I've been hearing that all day, and I'm like, no, you're an idiot. 14 million people got diagnosed with influenza last year. 0.1 or 0.01% died from it. So, you know what? Shut up. You're an idiot. But they had to cancel this. It screwed Fantasy Overwatch. I think the only thing they can do at this point is cancel the mid-season tournament, because they can't have a mid-season tournament because these teams won't actually be playing.
Mm-hmm.
So what you need to do is basically reschedule these for during the mid-season tournament. And you need to find a venue that is um well, not not in Asia. You need to probably find something in the US to play it a little bit safer. In regards to all this, so like, maybe they go back to LA or something like that, or maybe they don't even have it in an arena with the crowds. They just do a makeup, because there's so many games that need to make up at this point. But yeah, I think the betting is on they do it during the midseason tournament. Like, I think it almost has to be.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, like, if that's the case, and what are they going to do with the money that would have been in that prize pool? Maybe you donate it, maybe you just move it towards the end of the season. Obviously, there's different things that they could do on that front as well.
They should donate it to, I'd say 25% or 50% of it gets split between all the teams, just as whatever, and the other gets donated to the coronavirus, like whatever charity, like whatever, whatever. I don't know the name of it. Like, that would be the best PR move for Blizzard. And honestly, Blizzard always can use good PR because they screw up so much. Like, they could probably use some good PR.
Now, with that being said, speaking of the Overwatch League, hero pools are right around the corner. And it kind of starts not this week, but the following weekend. So the hero pool announcement will be happening on Sunday's Watchpoint post show. So basically, the way that this is going to work, Ed, is heroes that have a greater than 10% play rate will be eligible to be taken out of the pool. So since role lock, a 10% play rate cutoff would mean that you'd have anywhere between 2 to 5 heroes per role, with an average being more in the 3 to 4 line. So the way that they determine the play rate, because I'm sure people are going to want to know that, is you take the play time for each hero, and then you divide that by the total gameplay time. So, in all honesty, like with someone like Symmetra, who's really only seeing play on control, probably not going to be cherry-picked in this case. So, they're basically... the comment was that their belief is that pulling 4 of those heroes out of the rotation week to week should be significant enough to move the meta and unlock new strategies and compositions. So there's definitely been a pretty dominant 6 heroes, I would say, at least so far within the Overwatch League. A lot of people run in Reinhardt paired with a D.Va, a lot of Lucio and Ana play, and then, of course, Mei McCree, and a couple of other DPS heroes as well. But, the important thing is, at least we're going to be going into, like, that next week knowing who is going to be ineligible to play. Because that was really a big question for us, especially kind of like on the fantasy side of things, knowing, like, what the stock value of a certain player would be if, say, McCree was out of the meta, or really any hit scan, since they've been doing fairly well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if they go the route of just banning the most used tank, the 2 most used DPS, and the most used support. I don't think they go that route. I think they go kind of nitpick. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Reinhardt, but they get rid of D.Va. Maybe they get rid of Lucio over Ana. So you get a different, main support or something like that. And I don't think they get rid of both McCree and Mei. I say maybe they get rid of Mei and maybe, I don't know, who's another one of the top DPS? Hanzo? No. Widow? Maybe Mei, Widow.
Yeah, like Hanzo, Widow, Reaper.
Yeah, maybe they go no Widow, no Mei. So they don't get rid of, like, all the highest played heroes. But then from a different aspect is... Well, if you get rid of, like, Mei and Lucio, is McCree even in the meta? So why not also get rid of him, get a something like that? But you also run the risk of then the next week, well, they bring all those heroes back. Like let's say they get rid of like Ryan, Lucio, May, McCree. Well, then they ban them for 1 week. Then the next week they're the meta again. They're just rotating out metas every week. So I'll be interested to see how they handle this. Mainly with DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could definitely, they have like 3 tanks they could probably get rid of or ban, and probably 2 to 3 supports. So, but there's really 2 main DPS.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very interested.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what the initial rotation is going to be in this case. So outside of that, we've also kind of seen the numbers slip in a little bit in regards to the average viewership here as of late. And it's dropped to around 72,000. Now, I will say, Ed, I've kind of been flipping back and forth on the weekends where we have both CDL, aka the Call of Duty League, as well as the Overwatch League. And the CDL viewership has been around like 100K a lot of the time. Now, I will say, and this is important to note, when Chicago lost, unfortunately, the first time this season, the viewership dropped like 30K. So it just shows you, people are wanting to see Midwest representation. Plus, it's Chicago, so there is that too, and they are one of the top teams. But, the Overwatch League viewership has kind of been suffering here. And I don't necessarily think it's because of the quality of the games. Like, I'm so very invested in the current meta, as much as I don't really like May. But we've been seeing a lot of different approaches. We've seen teams looking better than we had expected. We've seen teams looking worse than we would have expected. And we've seen other teams just clapping fools. And it's been a healthy mix of storylines to follow already. But, you also have to factor in, well, we haven't seen all the teams yet. Some of the heavy favorites still haven't debuted yet, like the Atlanta Reign, who will be stepping on stage for the first time during the Houston homestand. But it just seems like as of right now, things are slipping little by little, and we still don't have any sort of time frame when it comes to enabling drops or anything like that, at least in regards to the YouTube side of things. So what do you think is the reason kind of like behind the numbers kind of like not really holding up to what we saw that initial week? But then again, like, we kind of figured it would be kind of front-loaded anyway.
Well, yeah, see, that's the thing, is we thought that it'd be front-loaded, because opening week, the hype was legit real. And it's just one of those things where it's YouTube numbers. So I don't think, some people have talked about how maybe it's the coronavirus and people in, like with the Chinese teams not playing, less people are watching. But here's the thing. They're not watching it on YouTube because, well, they're not allowed to watch YouTube. Like China does not have YouTube. So it's like, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's more or less this is the YouTube viewership, and they are just, this is what it's going to be. Now, I'm not saying this is bad viewership. Like, this is, they're getting 73,000 viewers for 7-8 straight hours. Like, that's kind of insane. Like, the CDL league, how long is the matches?
I honestly can't tell, but I'm just looking at like what the VODs have been doing in regards to the Overwatch League, and just looking at like the entire broadcast. So looking at day 1, the broadcast of the VOD has 590,000 views, And then day 2 has 524k. Now, both of those are over 7 hours. And then, of course, like, that's not even counting the match segments, which are, you know, anywhere between, like, 50 to 109k as well.
Yeah, it's like what was the stat that I was telling you about? It was so they were talking about like the most viewed things on Twitch last year.
Mm-hmm.
The LCS, the League of whatever Legends tournament that I've never watched before, was the most watched at like 192 million views, and then Overwatch League was at 100 or 192 million hours viewed, and like Overwatch League was at 191 million hours viewed. Like they're not hurting for viewership. Like that's the big thing. People look at it as this is how many people are watching right now, not this is how many hours people are watching.
Right. So the AMA, like the average minute audience, is still solid. It's basically, we're primarily just talking about the live viewership.
Yeah, which is, it's not something I think they're too worried about.
Mm-hmm.
Because even on VODs on YouTube, now correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be wrong. I've been known to be wrong from time to time. But YouTube VODs still have ads on them. So the ad, like the people paying for the ads are still getting ad views during the VODs. And that's kind of huge for them. So you know what? The Overwatch League is still probably making money hand over fist at this point. Like, I don't see them not making money hand over fist. So I'm not worried about the viewership at all, even remotely. Because people are also watching it more now on, you know, there's multiple channels to have it on. Like, there's, like, you really have to take like 8 or 9 YouTube channels into account when you're talking about the viewership numbers. So, yeah, I'm not worried whatsoever.
Yeah, me neither. I just want to see, though, if at any point they're going to get back to kind of like the initial front-loaded viewership. But then again, like, without stage titles or anything like that, it's going to be a little bit harder to imagine that they will see like a huge surge at some point outside of, say, getting drops in on YouTube.
Yeah, and you know what? Viewership numbers are going to probably skyrocket once you do start getting the Chinese teams in there. Mm-hmm. Like, and then you start including Chinese viewership numbers, and they actually can do homestands. Like, here's the thing. In my mind, the Overwatch League kind of has a free pass from my judgment this year in regards to geolocation, viewership numbers, stuff like that. Because this coronavirus stuff is kind of screwing up so much of that. So like I'm just not worried. Mm-hmm. Which is weird because normally I am. Normally I'm the negative Nancy, and I'm not even remotely worried. So be it.
Well, you know who should be worried? The Houston Outlaws, because they can't seem to win anything at all. Not a single match.
First off, that was not your best segue.
I know, I wasn't even trying to do a really good one. But
you've done better.
Here's the thing, Ed. At the end of the day, I honestly don't feel like the Outlaws deserve it.
You know what?
I had to put in about the same amount of effort that we've seen from them on stage.
That is much better than your segue.
So, with that being said, there was a match that happened. Unfortunately.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
For many people. That's between the Boston Uprising and the Houston Outlaws. And what was the only series to see a double draw, was also the only regular season series that went to a 7th map with this format. And, Boston come out, they win map 1, then we go to draw, they win map 2, we go to draw, and then we're controlled from here on out. Like, okay, let's see what happens. Houston starts to come back, wins 2 in a row, and then Boston ends up taking it. Now, there was a lot of stuff that happened in between. A lot of bad, a little bit of good. There were some, highlight moments from, say, Jerry and Muffin, who had both debuted for Boston Uprising. Jerry basically went from our draft meme to being an absolute stud, at least on Draft Buff. His stats actually were pretty good, but here's the thing. I felt like a lot of the times when the perspective was on Jerry, there was a lot of body shots. I wasn't really seeing the hit scan prowess in regards to the critical accuracy or anything like that. So he wasn't popping off in that regard, but he was fairly consistent at what he was doing. So all the power to him on that front. And Muffin looked pretty damn good too. Now that being said, we did see Axiom playing over fusions in this regard. And we did see some changes from the Outlaws. Specifically when it comes to the DPS. They did not opt for Blase and Hydration. Hydration was benched. They kept Blase on McCree for some reason. And then they brought in Dante to be the Mei player. Dante looked decent at Mei, even though he's not really known for Mei. He's more hit scan, Sombra, really anything that's not Mei. And Blase is more projectile anyway, but he's on hit scan. I don't know. It's all very confusing. And then you have, this rotation going on between Raucous and Rappel. Muma's boomed. Meko's kind of been all over the place because he doesn't know who to peel and protect for. There's a lot of things kind of, going on. A lot of different directions that the Outlaws are kind of, getting pulled towards. And, Boston, they stuck it out. They bounced back. They secured the win. But, man, Ed, when it comes to, matches, this was one of the hardest series I've ever sat down and had to endure and watch. There was a lot of bad in here. It was an absolute clown fiesta of a series.
Yes. Everyone had, on Twitter, everyone's like, oh, this is amazing. This is awesome. I love watching. No, this, it's cool that they went and did, the 7 maps and stuff like that. Did stuff that they never really had to deal with before. But let's be real. It was a shit show from the get-go. It was horrible. I didn't enjoy any of it. It was bad.
Hold on. To say you didn't enjoy any of it, I'm going to counterpoint.
I did enjoy some of it
when it ended.
It was one of those things where, it's a cool story, but it's not just because you have 2 teams that are bad, play bad against each other, and neither one could win a game. Doesn't make it a good matchup.
I felt like once it got to control, it leveled up a little bit, but it was just getting to that point, which was so nauseating.
And oh god, what was it? The constant, all right. Also, I know people love Brenna and Sideshow, and they're better than I thought they would be. But man, the amount of times that they just talked it up this was oh my god, it's like an orgasm in your pants type of match was annoying me. It wasn't needed.
Oh, it's like they're learning Overwatch before our very eyes.
I get it. You're excited. No one else really is that excited. It was cool to see Jerry, but yeah, no, Jerry put up good fantasy numbers because he played 7 matches. they also popped off against what is arguably the worst team in the Overwatch League. Like,
Joke's on us.
Yeah, jokes on us. You're popping off against crap teams. Like, I don't know. Like, it was cool to see a match actually go to 7 maps, but I really wish it wouldn't have been Boston versus Houston.
Yeah.
Like, give me even like 2 mid-tier teams, and I'd be stoked. But no, not 2 of the bottom 3 teams in the league. Just no. Bad.
So the real question at the end of the day, though, Ed, is Houston, in your mind right now, given the circumstances, 20th?
Yes.
100%. I can't even argue against it.
Like, I don't know how. Yeah, like I don't know how you would argue against it. They like it was one of those things where who's worse? Like Boston? No. Boston just beat them. Like that. There's no way Boston's worse than them. London? No, London actually looked not good, but.
And yeah, the thing with that too is like we saw London take a map off of the Excelsior. We also saw them beat Washington, which we're definitely going to talk about because that was an interesting series in itself. Yeah. But it's just funny because it makes me think back where like you and I kept arguing about who was worse between Boston and London, and our whole Lord bet is over that, and then here Houston comes in and just
hold my beer.
The bed.
like oh wait, who's the worst team? Hold my beer.
Which is why I cannot wait for London to absolutely dismantle Houston at the Houston Hope stand, just to solidify the fact and close it out before 7 maps. I can't wait.
So, yeah, I can't think of another team. The only thing is again, we have not seen all the teams, and we don't know everything that's going on. Like, we don't know. We've seen a lot of teams play like one series, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we don't really know. Like, could the Valiant be that bad? Who knows? So but right now, no, they're 100% dead last. Trash tier.
At least out of what we've seen.
Yes.
Now, outside of that, we also saw some interesting things in that Toronto Defiant Philadelphia Fusion match, where Toronto's basically like, all right, dog, we're just not going to run meta and see what you do. Fusion were kind of slow to adapt to what was going on with the Defiant. Toronto was running a lot of like Sombra dive compositions, really throwing the Fusion off for a loop. But unfortunately, it didn't secure the win for Toronto. Philly has just been firing on all cylinders. They've definitely looked very strong. In my opinion, definitely the best team that we have seen so far. But then again, we've also seen more of them than any other team. We did see them really just lay the smackdown on New York prior to that as well. And New York looked fairly bad in that match against Fusion, so, maybe there's not the big 3, so to speak, like with New York. Maybe the Fusion are up there with Vancouver and the Shock at this point, and then the Excelsior are that step down. But, I like seeing the Defiant not sticking to the meta because they knew it wasn't a match that they were going to win doing that, and they made that series very interesting. And that's a team that, we had kind of like middling expectations for just because there are a lot of new pieces. Beast is kind of unproven at this level at the main tank position, and we all know how important main tanks are, but the DPS players have definitely come to play this season, and, in some regards, maybe some of the players aren't popping off as much as they should, but Surefour is kind of just molded into whatever DPS that this team needs, and, it's been enough so far for them, and it makes you really see, Like, this is going to be a team that will challenge those elite teams throughout the season here.
Yeah, Fusion are the best team in the league that we've seen right now. I don't think there's really much of a debate on that, just for the simple fact, and I'm not saying they're actually better than everyone else. I'm saying they're the best team we've seen. Like, yes, we have seen the Titans for one game. We've seen the Shock for one game. We've seen the Fusion for what, 4? Yeah, I think 4 games so far. Like, we've seen them a lot for what we have been able to see this year. So that's surprising to everyone. I'm still not sold on Toronto. I think they're kind of their bottom 5-6 team at this point. I'm not sold on anything they've done. And that's just me being skeptical of them. Yeah, it's just one of those things where they look good for a few maps, so be it. London beat New York on a map. Doesn't mean that London's really that amazing. They're still bottom 3, probably.
Maybe.
Maybe. But, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. That is how I see that matchup. Toronto got a few matches. They got cheeky. Did the non-meta, but Fusion are clearly the better team. And I'm still not sold on Toronto. I'm Beast and Nevix are so. Kareev has been not horrible, but not, what everyone expected. Kellex is just Kellex. He's like
he's the middle
100%. He's the middle of the road. He's not gonna surprise. He's not gonna disappoint. He's just gonna be right there in the middle.
He exists.
Yeah. Agilities, actually, I will say, Agilities did look decent on Genji. But that's really about it.
Yeah, there was also some other interesting things. We've been talking about London, and London had what was a pretty surprising Dorado map in particular, where we saw the 4.31 meter defense, where Washington just could not push the cart to save their lives. Heck, I've seen individual players push the payload further than Washington did as an entire team. And, it was a mind-boggling experience, to say the least. But, it did also commemorate, the first reverse sweep that we have seen in this current format. So, Justice, unfortunately, continuing the trend of either the homestand team doing very good and winning both games, or, in this case, doing bad and not walking away with the win. Now, that being said, they had a much harder opponent in their other one, but it's a rough going out there if you were the home team. They've been losing more than they've been winning, and it's tough to see because the Justice, we've seen them facing some pretty tough teams, and they haven't necessarily looked bad,
right?
And yeah, Houston's kind of been infecting other teams. Other players have been dealing with the flu. Corey was sick, but Corey was still popping off. And, it's just, it was unfortunate. And, there were definitely some moments where, at least on the broadcast, that home crowd felt deathly quiet.
Oh, yeah. They're the best 1-3 team we have in the league. I will say that. They've lost to Philly, they lost to London, and they lost to Paris, who I think is a sneaky effing team. Paris is sneaky good. They may be sick and all that stuff, but I think they're better than we're actually seeing them play. Record-wise. They're better than that. So hopefully they turn things around, because they are still kind of fun to watch. I'm interested to see what happens when Lullish comes back, or gets there, not comes back, because he's never actually been there. I'm interested to see that. I will say this. the Justice have had my favorite actual like place for the homestand.
Okay.
It fits 6,000. Like, here's the thing is like, and people from DC can tell you this, and like I didn't realize it was there where it's at till like I looked it up in the map. But it's kind of like having it on the wharf in Chicago.
Okay.
Like it's on like almost like the boardwalk type of thing. And it fits 6,000 people. It's in a very trendy area, very hip area, a place where people want to be. It's not like out in the middle of nowhere. It's like you can go to the bars beforehand or the bars afterwards type of situation. Like right now, if I was to pick a homestand from what I've seen, Washington would be my first choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very cool like arena, big. I think I want to say it's the biggest. At 6,000, it fits 6,000 people, but
maybe in
I don't
the
know
US.
for sure. Maybe in the U.S.
Okay.
Well, we haven't seen one anywhere else.
I know. Well, I'm just saying, like we do know most of the China.
Yeah, most of the China ones will be bigger.
astronomical.
But like this is the biggest one we've seen so far. Like I'm jealous that Spider, like that's a place I could see myself going for like a long weekend, going down to DC and watching this and making Spider take me out.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully the Justice turn it around because they're fun to watch. And Corey is the ultimate like fantasy Mr. Reliable. Like if all else fails, just start Corey.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we also have the next homestand to look forward to, which is going to be hosted by the Houston Outlaws, right? Houston looking for that first win. They play twice. They face London on Saturday, and then on Sunday, they have a date with the Toronto Defiant. Now, Ed, I don't know about you, but after what we saw from London this past week, with their alternates, nonetheless, this could be the biggest trap game that we have seen.
Yeah, it really could. it 100% could. God. I don't know. I can't. Right now, I cannot imagine Houston winning anything. Like, even against London, I cannot even be like, yeah, no, Houston's going to win this.
And to that point, too, it's also a combination of, like, what London is going to come out. Like, are they going to start what we saw initially? Are they going to, like, have the same lineup that we saw this past week when we saw Clayson coming in, we saw Shui. I will say, though, Glister, after a stumbling start, actually looked pretty damn good this past week. So I really hope that he's gotten his feet underneath him and he's able to build off of this and really start to, showcase just how good of a player he is. Because, going into the season, I definitely pegged him as a Rookie of the Year candidate. But unfortunately, Ed, Alarm exists.
Like, there's Alarm.
Yeah.
Alarm happened. But yeah, Glister looked really good. I was surprised they didn't start Babel. Babel. But it didn't hurt them. Sanguinar really impressed. He turned out to be the ultimate Reddit Lucio. And get an ungodly amount of environmental kills.
Everyone's talking about Paris and FD God, and here's Sanguinar being like, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, like, hold my sake. Would that be? No. What do they drink in South Korea? Not sake.
Why are you asking me?
I don't know. Because in South Korea, they're not going to be like, hold my beer. That's going to be hold my... What do we drink in South Korea? Not sake.
Soju?
All right,
Okay.
hold my soju, and I'm gonna go out Reddit you, FD God.
Mhm.
So I guess the EU is the kings of Reddit Lucios at this point.
There you go.
I think they kind of settled on Highly as their flex support, if I'm not mistaken. I don't like. I still think Bernard is a good choice for Often.
Yeah, that was honestly the more confusing thing that we saw.
Because
Bernard gonna
Bernard
bench.
played good,
Mhm.
good-ish. Like I wouldn't say he was dominant, but he was good-ish.
Well, initially there were two more focal points that we saw from the team. Or two of the rookies that you would peg as being the backbone of the team. Obviously, Lister being one, Bernard being the other in this case.
Yeah. So, well, they still have J-Mac. So
They do. Which is why this main tank battle, if you could even call it that, is so intriguing to me. Because, as I mentioned, like, Muma has had a ton of issues. There's times where he's trying to do too much. And a lot of times he just feels like he's been boomed by a lot of these Korean main tanks, which has been the vast majority of the tanks that he's been going up against. But, if there's one other main tank that has definitely had an equal amount of downfalls this season, it's J-Mac. So if J-Mac comes out and clowns Muma, that's pretty much the final nail in the coffin for me, at least in regards to Muma and where I would rank him as a main tank in the league right now.
right, and the sad thing is, they have no backup tank in Houston if Muma is turning out to be the one that's getting clapped all the time.
Yeah, unless they're just like, hydration, go out on ball.
Right? And you know what? That wouldn't be the worst idea, because if Muma gets clapped by J-Mac, bye Muma. Like, I was big on Muma. It's just if he gets clapped by J-Mac, peace out. You're done. You bored me. Basically.
Mm-hmm.
That was Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Anyway, you bored me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this is another matchup where nobody wins.
Unless it's London.
No. London. So there's 20 people who win in this match if London wins. Everyone else loses.
Okay.
So awkward. How many brown paper bags do you see in the crowd?
Well, we haven't seen any yet.
Yeah, but we haven't had a Houston homestand after this shit show. Like, the Houston Outlaws are
the worst
the Cleveland Browns.
They're the worst stand-in team going into a hosted event.
Like, the Houston Outlaws equal the Cleveland Browns. No one can change my mind on that. Like, they keep going out trying to improve, and it never works. They change 75% of their team. Doesn't work. Get a new head coach. Doesn't work. Like, no matter what they do, it doesn't work. That is the Cleveland Browns. So, yep, it is decided. You are the Houston Browns. The most boring name ever.
Yeah.
But there's more. There's actually good matches from the Houston homestand.
Is there? Oh, there is.
I'm
just kidding. Because we got the Atlanta Reign stepping on stage for the first time in the 2020 season. I can't wait. But anyways, here are the actual matches. We kick off Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. We got New York Excelsior going up against a polarizing team, I would say, so far anyway, in the Florida Mayhem. All right, Florida, what Mayhem are showing up today? Are we going to get firing out of the gate, pink and blue, runaway vibing, Yaki, Gangnam style, and just in your face, or are we to get Fate and Byram?
Ooh.
I don't know. It's a tough call. Hopefully we get the A squad, cause New York has been slipping, and this could definitely be a trap game in that regard. So outside of that, Atlanta Reign do play for the first time this season, Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, when they go up against the Toronto Defiant. So we've already seen Defiant push some of the top teams to the brink. This is our first look at Atlanta. I'm really curious to see who Atlanta's going to field. Will they go with the ATL Academy tank line of Gator and Hawk? I'm assuming Dogman is still going to get the start over Kodak. Mazah is, I would say, an obvious start over Fire in this case. But at DPS, who knows? Like, there is so much depth, specifically between Airster and Edison, where I don't know how solid of an argument, say, having Baby Bay coming in and playing McCree is at this point, knowing that they could literally field every damage hero in the game just between the two of them. I don't know.
Yeah, one thing I've come to realize: don't bet on Dogman starting. Don't bet on Masa starting. Don't bet on legit anyone on that team starting outside Erster. Because that's the one thing I've kind of come into this, and I say this almost I said this at the beginning of last season. I know this. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. Who here predicted that Violet wouldn't be playing? No one. Who here predicted that Fury wouldn't be playing? No one. Like, these kind of things we don't know until we see it. So, likelihood that this happens? Probable. But am I going to bet on it? Hells to the no. Like, it's one of those things where anything could happen. That's why I'm not confident in starting any of them in Overwatch. I don't even know how confident I am in them actually playing well in this meta. So that's like, I kind of have to take the Toronto Defiant almost a little bit more serious than normal in this. Now, I do think Atlanta beats Toronto, but I just don't know what to expect from Atlanta at this point. Because I don't know if we're going to get Gator and Hawk. Everyone's assuming we're going to get Gator and Hawk, but who knows?
I feel like with the amount of flexibility, at least with who I feel like are the probable starters, Atlanta won't be in a position where it will be harder for them to adjust over, say, what we saw out of Philadelphia this past weekend. Now, that being said, it's also going to be a case of, well, are Toronto just going to try to push meta anyway to see how they stack up against Atlanta? And then if that fails, we'll see what happens at that point. They'll probably go back to the comfort picks, but Atlanta has the tape on that. Toronto doesn't have tape on Atlanta yet this season. So that can kind of offset things too, but Toronto's also in a position of they have their feet underneath them. They've figured out what works for them as a team. And they're bringing that into this match. But I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to Atlanta. I know a lot of us on the network are very high on the Reign coming into this season. And this is one of the few teams out there that do have a 12-man roster. So who knows? Expect the unexpected. Anything can really happen at this point, except maybe Houston winning a home game. I don't know. So
that's a bit harsh, but fair.
Harsh, but fair.
Harsh, but fair.
So after that, as we mentioned, at 4 p.m. Pacific time to close out Saturday, we got London against Houston in an interesting match. Hopefully, it's not going to be a 7-map series. But then we move into Sunday. We actually have 4 matches on Sunday, so we actually start a little bit earlier at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That means I'm going to miss twice as many matches on Sunday, unfortunately. Well, actually, this weekend as a whole, I got C2E2, so yeah. I'll have fun. Oh yeah, and I got Revolution on Saturday too, so there's that too. But anyways. So Sunday, to kick things off, 10 a.m. Pacific time, we got Boston Uprising versus Philadelphia Fusion.
we can move past that. Fusion, 3-0.
Three Overwatch.
Yep.
Then we move on to Atlanta again has like the most intriguing week. We got
This is the best matchup of the week.
at noon Pacific time. We got Paris Eternal versus Atlanta Reign. Now, Ed, you talked about Paris earlier. We didn't really even touch on the fact that Hanbin debuted for Paris Eternal this past weekend. So this is the second eligible Element Mystic player to play on this roster, of course, right beside XE, who has been holding up well in regards to the McCree stats, all the major categories, which has been awesome. I thought, honestly, like, there's gonna be a little bit of fall off, right? Like, he popped off the first outing. Surely he's not gonna have a similar effect. I was wrong. Hanbin looked fairly well. And Paris, man, like, I had my doubts. I thought this was going to be a team that would be slow getting out of the gates. They'd be picking up pieces as the season goes. But man, this team has looked a lot better than I was anticipating, and it's been a culmination of all of their parts really playing up. And, you know, it's stories like that that really drive me into rooting for a team like this. Like, I knew Element Mystic had a solid core. And, you know, I liked all the coaching decisions that this team made, but I didn't know how the actual roster was going to be with the whole mixed roster in place now. But, man, have they been a pleasant surprise. And, you know, if you're Atlanta, knowing that both of the teams that they are facing this week have really been playing up to some pretty stiff competition, this is not an easy road to kick off the season if you're the Reign.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Paris to me right now is a top 16. They just are, and it's not even so much for the two Element Mystic players who have played very well.
Mm-hmm.
It's that the rest of the team is playing so much better than I think they are used to. Like, Ben Best has looked like one of the best main tanks in the league. Oddly enough, you have FD God, who no one really knew who came in. I thought he was a Baptiste main, and who knew he was an awesome Lucio. Hip has turned into be a really strong support player. And, you know, no one saw Nico like as the person he is.
Mm-hmm.
So like Nico was ridiculous. Nico is probably the second best May player in the league right now. Maybe arguably the best. It's him and Ivy right now are the two best May players in my mind.
Ivy had some very questionable things happen this past weekend, so I doubt him a little bit more than I did going into this past week. Some of that was just Blizzard placements, where a team would just literally just move right past it because it was in a poor spot, or getting caught out in the enemy Blizzard, forcing the ice block, and then not being able to escape. You know, things like that. But Nico's been very consistent for what we have seen so far.
Mm-hmm. So, like, this team is really good. I legit feel they're top 16. And this is going to be the ultimate test for Atlanta. Is if Atlanta could beat Paris, I think Atlanta solidifies themselves as a top team.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. Would anybody be shocked that much if Atlanta came in 0-2 or 2-0? Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's no gimme matches. There's no, like, this is a little bit easier type matches, like anything like that.
I feel like people would be surprised if they do go 0-2.
I don't know if I would be. Like, I don't think it's likely. I think more likely they go 1-1. And I know that's the safe bet, but, you know, it's one of those things where if they lose to Toronto, I think they go 0-2. Because I don't see if they lose to Toronto, I don't see them being better than Paris then at that point.
I would agree.
So
in that regard,
I'm very high on Paris right now. Very high. Like, and to think they haven't even seen the peak Paris Eternal at this point. Because we have no Sparkle.
For 2/3 of the season.
Exactly. But, like, Sparkle is the main draw here. And if Sparkle lives up to 75% of the hype, this team is going to have the scariest DPS lineup. Period.
Yeah, and who would have thought a team that I pegged as fighting for survival until Sparkle became of age
would be considered top 6. But, like, I think people, like, thought, like, oh, they don't have Sparkle, but then they don't realize that they also had 2 other Element Mystic players on the team. Like, you have Hanbin's very good. So, yeah. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Yep, so after that at 2 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, we have the London Spitfire taking on the Florida Mayhem. Another interesting match. I'll be honest, like, I have a really hard time getting a read on this particular match. Because both of these teams have been inconsistent so far this season. Now, if we get A Squad Florida versus A Squad London, I would give the slight edge to Florida. But I feel like this on paper will be one of the closer series that we're going to see this weekend.
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher on Florida than I think most. Just for the simple fact that I love Gargoyle. Like, I love Gargoyle. I think he's probably one of my favorite off tanks. I just want to see him on Roadhog all the time. Like, that's what I want. I want to see him on Roadhog. I want to see him on Roadhog all the time because his hook play is legit redunculous. And Gangman style is a phenomenal Anna. I just hope they don't go with Byron. Like, I hate to see them do the double tank, like double main tank, Byram shit show that they did. I think Yaki is a very good DPS for them because it allows them to rotate out Saya player and BQB to play what they consider their strongest positions. Like, you bring in Saya player for all the, we need a sniper. Well, obviously you're gonna bring in Saya player for all that stuff. So it's just one of those things where I think they could be a top 10 team very easily. They just need to have the right coaching. So I don't know. I still think Florida will walk away with this one. In my mind. So, I don't think London's good enough to really do anything. I think it's going to be a 3-0.
So would you say that both Florida and London end up split in the weekend, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah. 1-1 each. I could see that. And I think they'd both be happy with that. Because, worst case scenario, obviously, is Florida loses to New York, Florida loses to London. Actually, no. I think Florida's going 2-0. I predicted Florida to beat New York. At least on the on OWO by the numbers last night. Because I'm not sold on New York. I mean, they have wins against London, Outlaws, Uprising. So they have no good wins. They did not look that good against the Fusion. Like, I'm just not sold on this team. So it's just, I think Florida has a good chance of going 2-0. So that's just me. I'm weird though.
I want to see if the odds are up really quick, just to get an idea.
Now, I will say this: if they start Byram, I think their odds of winning go down drastically.
On looking at the odds, the closest one out of all of them is Mayhem Spitfire. Mayhem is not favored in either match.
Wait, Mayhem are not favored against the Spitfire?
Yeah. At least on this side.
Okay, hold on. I need to go get my card.
Yeah, Mayhem is listed at plus 114, Spitfire at minus 154.
Oh. I'm perplexed.
I know.
But I mean, I guess people who do odds do this for a living. So I'm never going to argue with people who put in odds because, like, legit, this is all they do. And they're way better at it than I could ever be. But that should be flipped.
Potentially. I mean, esports odds typically are all over the place.
Yes.
And a lot of that is because a lot of it is still pretty new in that regard, too. So I do give them a little bit of leeway on that regard. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what they actually have there. So with that being said, though, that's basically all the matches that we'll see this weekend. So we got 7 matches in total in regards to the Houston Homestand event. Looking forward to it. Hopefully I'll be able to catch all the matches before Monday's show. Otherwise, Ed, you gotta do a lot of carrying on that front. At least on this show, since we are recording Monday.
Oh yeah, no, and nobody thinks that should ever happen. Any time where it's Ed has to carry the show, we're fucked.
You know what? It's okay, Ed, because we'll just have Kevin do everything.
Spoiler!
Because he did message me mid-show.
Spoiler alerts? Fuck!
It's fine.
Alright, nobody knows who Kevin is anyway.
Yeah. No one.
But, yeah, no, it's I'm definitely, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited for Monday. I really am. I think Monday's going to be a blast. Hopefully we get some people sending in some clips or some messages and stuff like that.
If not, we'll just rant for an hour and a half.
Also, we are coming up with the
bingo card.
Episode 200 bingo board. Which I think if we're going to have any prizes, one prize needs to be dedicated to a correct bingo board. Somehow. We need to figure that out. Like, Ed says one of my random words I always say.
Well, what if we
Bejazzle.
What if we do it where with each bingo we do an additional giveaway?
There you go.
Or something like that. I don't know. We'll think of something on that regard. But either way, I want to put something together for that, specifically for bingo. Just due to a recent tweet today, which I'm not going to shy away from anyway. And, sometimes there are just...
totemisms?
I mean, there are just isms or crushes that a lot of podcasters use. And, some weeks, they're a lot more evident than others. I'm assuming he meant last night's episode? I don't know.
Yes, it was last night's episode.
It is what it is. I'm not going to complain one way or another. But we hope you guys make it out Monday night, 5 p.m. Pacific time, for episode number 200 of this podcast, the flagship show of OWL Network, that, of course, being Heroes Never Die. But, Ed, it's that time that we close things out for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, for starters, join us next Monday, most importantly. And then after the fact, go write us a review on iTunes. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you'd like to see improved with the show. Whether you want more isms, more segues to Outlaws hatred. I don't know. It could be anything. Just let me know. We are open ears and an open book. We do also have a way for you guys to find additional Overwatch-related content. That, of course, being Overwatch Recall, which you can find on our website. And then every Sunday, we do the weekly recall, which is an episodic listen of all the prior week's episodes. And man, Ed, has the Overwatch community been releasing some content. Like, I'm talking quality and quantity. Like, we've been anywhere from like 25 to 30 episodes week to week since the Overwatch League started back up. I love to see it. And of course, to keep up with the latest, follow Overwatch Recall on Twitter at OW Recall. Now, if you guys would like to support our podcast network, you can do so via Patreon, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. And you can find more info at patreon.com/OWL Network, where you too can join in the likes of our master and above patrons in Boomer Bob, Brendan, Jay-Z, Owl, Kesha, and Agent Life in helping our network grow. So we appreciate everything going on with the Patreon. And hopefully we'll pick up a few ones along the way as well. But why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how they can contact our show?
All right, so you can contact our show through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are over on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have our website, and that's at owlnshow.com. We do post everything on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We do have a Discord channel over on discord.me/OWLN Show. And then we streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN Show. So we are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast does stream pretty regularly. So on Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network, which this week we had the Prodigal Son Spider Return. So definitely check that out. Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have OWL by the Numbers, our fantasy Overwatch League podcast that me, Totem, Ramses, and Boomer Bob do. And then obviously we have this show, Heroes Never Die, which is Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can catch me personally on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar, where I will be streaming I'm starting this Saturday. I'm doing my initial game play through Star Wars: The Fallen Order, because I'm a horrible gamer, and I've only played 7 video games in my life after Nintendo 64.
And you're also a nerd, and you like Star Wars.
And I like Star Wars. It's just I bought the Origin Access Pass, and I'm like, I get that game, so I'm going to do that. Then after that, I'll probably do Titanfall 2, and then maybe Mass Effect. I've legit never played through any of these games, so I need to start playing through some of them. So I'm going to start on Saturday with Star Wars: The Fallen Order. So I'm very excited to come out there and join me. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me over on Twitter. That would be at TotallyDrunkCTR. And I do stream Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays over on Twitch at twitch.tv/TotallyDrunk, where I'll probably be streaming more Battlegrounds as I try to sort out whether or not I'm good at using dragons, or if I'm just good period anymore, because I've been slipping quite a bit skill rating wise, but who knows? Maybe I can figure out the new meta quicker than others. I don't know. But regardless, guys, thank you so much again for joining us on episode 199 of Heroes Never Die. And just as a reminder, 200th episode, Monday night, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Be here. We hope to see you guys out there. And it should be a good time. You guys take care and have a good night.
Be here. Be square.
Wow.
Wow.